Welcome back to the Fi Guys podcast, where we talk about financial independence, clarity, and creating the life you want. Today, I have an incredible guest joining the conversation, Sherron, also known as the modern savvy CPA. Together, we'll dive deep into the world of financial literacy and why it's so much more than just crunching numbers. Sherron shares her inspiring journey from poverty to prosperity, breaking down the importance of financial education for everyone, not just those struggling, but for anyone who wants to build a solid foundation. We'll explore how millennials and Gen Z face unique challenges in managing money and the societal shifts that have left gaps in financial education and how we can fill them. Today, we also take a step back and reflect on the big question: what does it mean to have enough in a world driven by consumerism? This conversation is packed with insights about taking control of your financial future through planning, education, and prioritizing what truly matters. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive in. This is the Fi Guys. Let's get started. What I'd like to do today on the podcast, what I typically find with people when you bring on two financial professionals is most financial professionals, they come in with an agenda of to say, this is the right way to go about doing things. And what I've found from talking with so many CPAs, financial advisors, is that no one really knows what truth is. Truth just works, or what works for you might work differently for somebody else. So what I'd like to do on the podcast, yes, what I'd like to do on the podcast is just explore together in the spirit of adventure, just a conversation between two money professionals so that hopefully our audience members can glean some wisdom just from us talking about it, not with an agenda, not with trying to beat the other person to say like my way is right, but just to say what is right so we can try to find truth together. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Wonderful. So could you tell me where your money story began? What got you into becoming the savvy CPA?
So the Savvy CPA did not come about until the name actually did not come about until the end of 2022. The idea for the Savvy CPA came about 5 years before that. I don't know exactly when, but it's along my financial journey because I never looked at things like a normal CPA. I was in the corporate world for a little while. I worked for the Red Cross in New York City. I worked bookkeeping, those type of things before college. And then when I moved to Florida in 2003, I went into public accounting, which is more like CPA, tax, auditing, that type of stuff. And I'm really trained from that end on doing a lot of tax research. So tax strategies, business strategies, and things like that. So my psyche or my makeup is not really just to do taxes. It's never to just do anything. It's always the plan, the strategy. Why are we doing it? And I could never talk to my clients by just, first of all, I'm a talker. So that alone takes me away from any other CPAs.
Yes.
And anybody who knows me knows that. And then the second thing is I can't help myself but ask a client, okay, do you have a will or do you have a trust or what is your business plan? Are you looking at stuff? What is your kid's stuff? So I just can't help myself. So I've been doing that in the practice of public accounting for 21 years. So I've been living through that holistic financial planning, which is not the same as wealth manager. I know that gets confusing sometimes for people to understand what financial planning is. I separate financial planning from wealth management because there's several different avenues there. So the Modern Savvy CPA was thought of long before, but I raised my kids. I do my thing. My kid comes home from school from UCF and we're picking a name. So I'm like, how about the Savvy CPA? I'm ready to go into this. You guys are older. I have an adult. I have another one. We're picking a name. What do we want to do? So I'm like, how about the Savvy CPA? They like the Savvy CPA, but that was not available on the domain on GoDaddy.
Mm-hmm.
So my older son's like, well, you're kind of modern, mom, because all my friends ask you questions. So how about the Modern Savvy CPA? And that's how the name was born.
That is a really cool story. I'd like to hear the origin of how everything came to be. Now, earlier you mentioned that you do holistic financial planning, which is very different from wealth management.
Yep.
For our audience members, would you mind explaining the difference from your estimation?
Okay, so from my perspective, Wealth management is more so, and like I equate wealth management to CFPs or even some CFAs, which I didn't even know existed until my son told me he's going to do that. Because the world has changed now compared to when I went to school. You're younger, you know, almost 3 decades ago, it was just accounting and finance, nothing else, right? So it's just different now. So my thoughts on wealth management is sort of someone who's versed in the market, the financial markets, understands stocks, bonds, hedge funds, now ETFs, maybe a little bit more mutual funds, although I think that's a dying breed. I do have my opinion on all these things, but I don't have specific things that I've studied or done matrix on to manage your portfolio. And I never wanted to do that. So I want to have like an overview, and I love listening and understanding. And during COVID, I started managing some of my own money just so I understand a little bit better. But I do believe that a wealth manager should be doing that part of things. Whereas holistic financial planning is, for me, is someone who does not have a skin in the game, like they're not managing your insurance or your wealth or that type of stuff, but they can look at your overall finances. So they can look at your real estate, your kids, your home, your financial portfolio, and work with your team to work with that. So they need to be versed with talking to your wealth manager, versed with talking to whoever your attorney is that spoke, that does your estate planning, versed with understanding how to title your stuff, making sure that you don't have to go through probate. Kind of like all those things, pulling it together for you. And it's someone that you can trust that looks at all of those things. And there are many things, because what I am now is a CPA PFS, which PFS, there's only 3,000 of them in the hundreds of thousands of CPAs, where that's what we do. We do spending plans, we do holistic financial planning. Some of them do manage wealth. That's not me. I would never be involved in managing wealth because I never want to be in. I believe you need to have your own eyes for that, like a different, perspective for that.
What
So
does CPS stand for?
CPA, PFS,
Oh,
PFS,
PFS, sorry.
PFS is personal financial specialist,
Gotcha.
and it is a designation for specifically CPAs. So you have to have a CPA before you can qualify to do this, and then there's different avenues. So it's kind of like a CFP for CPAs. So it
Mm.
allows us to discuss certain things with our clients. And some PFS do manage wealth, but they have to have the additional the RIA stuff and all of that stuff. We still have to have our RIA to discuss wealth. But that's not the avenue. I want to be looking at my client on a holistic way and work with their team to work with them. That's me.
Really interesting. So looking into you, it looks like you have 27 years of experience as a CPA. During that time, was it always like, this is the avenue that I want to go in? I just don't want to be the person who's doing someone's taxes? Or where did it all start for you? When was it that I need to go holistic rather than just kind of doing just one aspect, which I feel like most people end up doing?
So
Something sets you apart.
yeah, well, my journey kind of wavered along the way. So I was always good in math. So we knew I was gonna do money, something with numbers. I was also good in science, but I didn't want to go to that much school for that. So with accounting, I kind of worked into accounting, but then I did not think I wanted to do taxes. So I didn't take my CPA exam until 5 years after I graduated school because I didn't know if I wanted to do auditing or taxes. So I worked in corporate. I worked for the American Red Cross in New York City during 9/11. Um, so I was doing that for a good 5 years before I decided, okay, I'm going to try the public accounting world, which is taxes and auditing and stuff like that. So it ends up that I ended up coming to Florida and started working for a tax firm, a local tax firm. And that's when I started doing taxes. I liked it, but I still was not just a person that just sits there and put the numbers on there. I'm more of a front facing type of person. And when I was doing that and I was getting my more credentials, I started doing more classes in tax research and, tax strategies. And my firm did a lot of tax planning. We weren't just doing taxes. We were busy all year long, and I did a lot of tax planning, especially for real estate clients. So that's when I realized, okay, I like this better than actually sitting down just crunching numbers, which is up my personality anyway, because I am not an inside person. So I always knew along the lines that that I'm looking for that part of me. So that's kind of, it kind of evolved, I would say. I always make goals, I always plan, but part of my plan is like it's not going to work out exactly what you do. I have a saying, and I have lots of sayings. You're going to learn that you have to make a plan because God wants you to plan, but He's going to refine it for you. So I make plans, and God refines it.
So it looks like you are very passionate, and for what you've told me, very passionate about teaching financial literacy, especially to Gen Z. Why Gen Z specifically?
So I would even say Gen Z and Millennials. So I think that ranges from when your money journey starts, right? Which for me, would be maybe real money journey starts like when you're a teenager or a young teenager. And most of the stuff in your life happens to me in terms of money between the age of 15 and 35. So you start your bank account, your credit card, you're in high school, you got to start thinking about college, money, blah, 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 blah. College is a big money lesson, which people don't emphasize on. Sometimes I wonder where our world is when it comes to financial literacy. So then you have that college during the last years of high school and the rest of college is kind of like a big money journey where you're learning so much. Then you go into your first job where you got to learn more. You need that education there, and you keep moving. You have your first house, 401k. You have to think of investing. You have to think of retirement. You have to think about kids. You got to think about so all of that happens within that 20 years. So those are all kind of first things that happen to you within those 20 years. So that's one of the reasons I niched down to that. And that also was not a goal of mine when I first started. I just find that number one is the most need. And number two, I believe the Gen Z and Millennials are more open to talking about money because the other generations, they think money is taboo. You shouldn't be talking about it. You shouldn't be sharing. It's personal, all these things. But just like everything else in life, we have to share I have learned so much about so many things, even about finances, in the last 2 years being out there, putting myself out there, talking to other people, and the power of networking, even networking with the janitor, the power of networking with society, with community. That it's amazing how much you can absorb and how much you can help yourself, your business, your society. It's an all in one thing, in my opinion. You're not just doing one thing. I might be focused on my business, but I'm also a philanthropic person, so I can help the community at the same time. I can help my kids. I can help kids around me. So that's why I feel like that piece of our population, first of all, if we don't focus on them, it's going to get really bad when it comes to our middle class. And um there's a bunch of things, and our society is going towards all this consumerism, and I call it brainwashing because I easily get brainwashed. I don't and now I know why all these kids are on ADD medicine. I think I need some because there's so many things to distract us that the focus has to be so intentional. So those are all the reasons why I picked that area of age range. Um, and you're in that age range, aren't you?
I am. I'm a millennial, and my target demographic. I have two sides of my business, but the main side, the one that I enjoy the most, is my coaching side, and that's geared towards millennials and Gen Z as well. And I find the exact same thing, that if you want to make positive change, you need to make it early on.
Yes.
rather than waiting for someone to ideally figure it out. And then when you're, a traditional wealth manager, I don't want to talk to anybody. If I was just a traditional wealth manager, I don't want to talk to someone who's Gen Z or millennial because you don't have money anymore.
They don't have money. Yep.
If my incentive is to only manage money, then I don't want to talk to you till you're 60 or 70 and have all the money. But at that point, we've just lost out on the ability for you to even be able to grow wealth. So it takes a reframing as to how can we actually help this generation. And that was the idea of our podcast, the Fi Guys, was to get out there and show Gen Z and millennials. I'm a millennial. My co-host Dominic is Gen Z, that we're young. We're figuring it out. I figured it out to quite a high degree, but we're still learning together, because just because it worked for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else. And that's something that I always try to bring apart. Just because I'm a money professional doesn't mean my way is right. It's just a way that is right amongst so many other ways that are also right.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. Okay. It's a way that is right. Yeah. I'm in 100% agreement with you. And I try to talk to a lot of the financial CFP professionals here about that, because they have this ratio. It's we need $250,000 before, but you have no idea where these younger people are going to grow into, and that's where you need to start with them. So I know that that generation that I'm looking at, they're going to grow with me. And, I can start with them. And like I said, they're most open to talk about money. They're not, and it's hard because they still fear that this is a taboo subject. They're afraid to say what it is that didn't work. There's stuff that didn't work for you and I that we can share. There's stuff that still doesn't work for you and I that we've tried and doesn't work. So it's a journey when it comes to money, right? So there are things, it's like the diet, the journey of health. You're not always going to be the most healthy person, but then you go back and you look at what you ate that day and you fix it, So if you want to be healthy, you have to keep working on that journey. And it's the same thing with money. If you want to be healthy with finance, it's a journey. So it's not like, oh, I'm good with money, I'm done. And that's what most people think. They're like saying to me, oh, I don't need financial education. Well, I need financial education, and I'm a CPA with 3 decades of experience, and I still need help with certain things. I might be versed in real estate, and you might be versed on hedge funds. And it's something that I want to learn about, which I know nothing about, or crypto, or, so there's always something you can teach me and I can teach you if you're open to learning.
That's something that, in addition to doing this and all the other stuff I do, I'm a jiu-jitsu instructor as well. And it's amazing how much you get to learn, even from people that you would think is a novice, someone that comes in as a white belt, but maybe they have a background in judo or wrestling or something like that, that they can teach you, someone who's been doing it for a long time, something new that works for them. And you can integrate it into your own game to see, does it work for you? And it's the same thing with money. Money is that exact same thing. I think
my videographer is a jiu-jitsu craze here, so she's getting real excited that that's what you are. So you definitely have to come to Florida.
Okay, we could definitely do that.
I'm sorry, I divert.
It's okay. Let me ask you this. So we're going to talk a lot about Gen Z and millennials, because that's what you're passionate about. That's what I'm passionate about. What things do you see in our society today that is holding that generation back from being good with money?
Education is one. And the world of money and how to handle it is changed. So I'll give you an example, right? And you are a millennial. So I'm a Gen X. So you're just behind me. You're not that far. And so years ago, like my older clients, right? They didn't have to think about financial education as much because a lot of things was done for them. For example, if you worked for a large company, and most people that are boomers, not so much, my generation is somewhere in we are the sandwich generation because we take care of the older and the younger, but boomers and older boomers, they are used to working for companies that gave them 100% health insurance, a pension. So there's a difference between defined benefit and defined deferred benefits and deferred compensation, right? So Deferred compensation is like 401k and that type of stuff. You have to contribute in order to get money. So you as the employee have to contribute to deferred compensation. It comes out of your pocket. Yes, the company will do it, but you have to do it too. When it comes to deferred benefits, oops, sorry. When it comes to deferred benefits, um, the company did it for you. You didn't even know, how much they put in your pension plan, what's happening. So usually these companies had the robust benefit package, which included a pension and included health insurance, and some of them give you health insurance when you retire. That that's that generation. So they were able to concentrate more on the things that they're living on. They didn't have to worry about health insurance. They didn't have to worry, and don't get me started on that. They didn't have to worry about 401ks and IRAs and all those good stuff. Some of the companies even had college funds that they would contribute to send your kids to college. In short, it wasn't that expensive, but some of them had that. Today's society, first of all, we have a lot more entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial small businesses. That didn't exist 50, 40, 30 years ago. I forget the statistics on that, but it's a lot more. After 2019, it's even been more than that after the COVID epidemic. Um, so even if you're an employee for a company, you don't let you. I don't know anybody that's offering defined deferred benefits package. If they do, it might be something that's not mandatory and it's at their discretion and they still have, so you have to contribute to your retirement for you to get a retirement, which is where 401k and retirements are. So Gen Z and millennials have to think about that. Health insurance has run amok. I mean, it is ridiculous that the number one reason Americans file for bankruptcy is because of health issues. Now, I
Because they
know
had the audacity to get sick.
yes, they have yeah. So we were talking the other day. I don't remember who I was talking to, or maybe it was in a video on trending topics that the guy that shot the health insurance, that assassinated the health insurance guy, it was his issues with insurance or whatever it is. And he came from a wealthy family that had all what society and the American cream of the crop had to offer. He had that. Imagine if it was lowly one of us, what issues we've gone through. And on top of that, health insurance was not his right. That's one of his reasons that he went, he lost it for whatever reason, right? I don't know what the all reasons are. I'm not a psychiatrist, but just in the story. Whereas now he's going to go to prison for life and he's guaranteed health insurance. Because when you're a prisoner, one of the rights that you have is health insurance. So the American government has to provide health insurance for this prisoner. But you and I, law abiding citizens that's living in the world, working, trying to make it, we are not guaranteed health insurance. Any type of health insurance. We would have to be dirt poor, totally disabled, or over the age of 65 before we can get any type of help with health insurance, which is doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. That you have, he's gonna have more rights for health insurance than us. So that's like, it's absurd to me. I don't understand. All these smart people that we have in our government and wherever, I can't see how they're not seeing this. So that's something that is, you and I, we have to worry about. Out of my husband, we have health insurance with him. Our contribution out of his paycheck is like $1,200 a month, plus all the co-pays, co-insurance, co-everything. Anything that says co has something to do with money coming out of my pocket in addition to my health insurance. So it's probably, he's a severe diabetic, so it probably costs about $30,000 out of our pocket every year for insurance, for health stuff. No, people can't afford that. Like, so you have to be educated about the policies that you're picking. You have to be educated about what's being offered to you, where it is. That's all a math game. That's all finances. You have to be educated about contributing to your 401k. There are people in my generation that has not been saving for retirement because we're the sandwich generation. So it's not like the boomers. They have a retirement set by them, by their company. If you're an entrepreneur, even worse. If you're an entrepreneur that owns an S Corp and has never been paying yourself out of it, which is not right, by the way, there's two areas of gray. There's two areas, black and white. There's certain. Then you're gonna become a retired person with no Social Security. You're gonna get $200 for Social Security. So you're not even gonna have Social Security, much less any type of insurance. So if you're not an educated business owner, anybody can open a business. And don't get me wrong, everybody's good at what they're doing. They know what they want to do. If you're a plumber, you're a doctor, whoever you are, you're great at what your thing is. That doesn't mean you can run a business. You can be fabulous at what you're doing, but that does not mean you can run a business. And we have no business courses in any of these professions. Doctors and lawyers are the worst, in my opinion, because I see them in my own business. So if you're not educated financially, how are you going to do all these things? Even buying a car, you go in to buy a car and all people are concerned about is the payment, right? So you could be paying for a car for 10 years, but you're only worried, oh, you want your payment to be $400. In 10 years, that could be $150,000, right? So we need to be educated to know what is the cost of the car. What are we, it's not just the payment. It's what's the cost of the car. You're buying a house. You need to understand that when you refinance your house and you take money out, that's added on to your mortgage. I have a doctor of pharmacy that I had to explain that to because she didn't understand that why I own the house, why when I refinance and take money out, my mortgage is going to go up. It's financial education. We don't learn that. We don't focus on that. Our parents don't teach us unless they're financially educated themselves. So these are all the issues that is facing millennials and Gen Z, but it's a domino, right? So yes, it was coming down the pike a little bit at a time. It is facing Gen Xers because I know a lot of Gen Xers that are not prepared, but it's going to get even worse because the world is different. We didn't have leasing cars. You could, it wasn't so materialized. Like you see everybody having fun and doing all these things on social media. Well, guess what? They probably have no pot to piss in, and it's all on credit. So don't believe what you see. Don't believe your lying eyes, like they say. So these are all the things that I feel like if we don't address your generation and your partner's generation and teach them properly how to manage this, it's easy to make money, but it's harder to keep it. So, anybody makes money because I know people making $500,000 a year and they don't keep any of it. So it's easy to make that $500,000 because it's harder. They can't keep anybody anymore if they don't know how to. So that's the issue. And I'm afraid that your generation, there's a lot of things that's going to be out of reach for you if we don't teach you how to manage your money properly and how to understand that if you're grateful for what you have and you can work with it. There's another saying that says, if you can manage a little bit of money, you can manage a lot of money. If you can't manage a little bit of money, you can't manage a lot of money. That's what happens to all these lottery winners and people who's never managed a lot of money. They end up with millions of dollars and it's gone in 5 years.
Yeah. This year in 2025, I always try to set an intention. I don't really set goals because I don't like to wait for a specific date to be able to go about doing a goal, but I always have an intention. And this year, my intention is to explore what is enough, both financially, spiritually, personally, what is enough. And I think if people, Gen Z, millennials, were to start to ask that question to themselves and not ask ChatGPT, not ask their mom, not ask their dad, not ask their partner, what is enough, but ask themselves, what is enough? And I think before you even do that, you need to ask yourself, what are my values? Because once you know your values, you can start to discover what is my why. Once you have your why, you can start to discover what is enough for me. Because I think one of the worst things that I've seen in society today, in my generation and the generation below me, is when we're trying to decide what is enough, we're not looking objectively at what is enough. Objectively, $100,000 is objectively probably a good amount of money for a majority of the states. We don't look subjectively as to what do I need for my specific place that I live in, my house, my payments, my car, my everything, we look comparatively. And I think the issue when you're looking comparatively is there's always somebody who's above you. No matter how high you climb, no matter how high you climb, there's always going to be another person at another rung. So we have an endless goalpost that you can never meet. So what I say is, rather than, I think the only way to escape this consumerism issue, and I think if you would even go onto social media, it makes it even worse, because now you're not looking at reality, you're looking at somebody's perfectly curated life.
Yes.
And you're now comparing your insides to someone's perfectly curated outsides.
Yes.
For what they want you to see. So we're actually be doing a podcast next week on this from a philosophical discussion as to what is enough. And I would like our audience members and maybe yourself too to think about that and try to bring that to your people that you speak with. Because I think once you're able to answer those questions, you realize that the money was just something getting in the way of you getting to you being enough. What do you think about that?
So I'm a little older than you, not a lot, just a little. When I was younger, because I told you I grew up in poverty, I grew up in the South Bronx. I've been mugged. I've had my car window broken into every week. I've had my days. And before that, my parents came from a very small town in Guyana where we didn't have electricity or running water or anything like that. So I have a unique perspective in understanding these different parts of society. And when I was younger, when you grow up with not having what you think is enough, you kind of hold on to that and thinking, okay, this amount of money is going to be enough. So when I was younger, I always thought, okay, if I make 50,000, that's going to be enough. If I make 60,000, and I pray, I was a very religious person before. I'm still religious. I have some issues with organized religion lately, but that's a whole other story. But I'm a very faithful and spiritual person. I still believe that God is the one that guides me, and I've had a life with lots of ups and downs, with health and everything else. And without my faith, I would not be here. So I would pray and ask God, if I make this much, it'll be enough. If I make this much, or whatever I want, I ask for. And sometimes it'll come to me, and it is never, and I repeat the word never, the way you think it's going to come to you. When it comes to you, it is never what you think will solve all of your problems. So now, after a while, and after I went through a couple of things, I started praying and asking God to give me enough. And for a numbers person, it's hard not to have a number, right? Because we deal with numbers all the time. So when I used to make $8.30 an hour and my husband made $6 an hour and I was in college and we lived in a little condo, that was enough because I made it work. That's what God thought was enough at that point. Now, don't get me wrong. God gave us all these gifts for us to use for ourselves, for our family, to share in society, whatever it is that we're supposed to use, that we have to explore, right? What are we supposed to use these? We shouldn't just pray for things because some of it he's already given. And some of it is the gifts that we have. We have to explore within ourselves what are those gifts that we can use for ourselves and share with others. So before I sit down and I pray for something that is material, or even something that is not material, or it's a goal setting situation or anything like that, I asked God for enough. And when I was making $8.30 an hour, he made that enough. And if he thought that was enough, I needed to learn how to work with that. And now that I make a lot more than that, but people will not believe what I survive on. It's enough. I don't complain about it, so people wouldn't say anything, wouldn't believe what it is. It's enough. Does he not want you to have ambition? Yes, he wants you to have ambition because he gave you gifts. You gotta use them. If he puts in you that you should get this idea in you that this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be helping society and whatever, need to keep working on that, working on the gifts that God gave you and ask him to do the rest. I have another saying, I do my best and God does the rest. So I'm always evaluating enough in my own self. Am I doing my best? Is it my best? It's not the best. It's my best because the rest is spiritually taken care of. And that mentality has worked for me in life. I have been a very happy and content person. Are things perfect? No. Am I building wealth? Yes. Am I building wealth and sharing it? Yes. Do I intend to do it more? Yes. I have all these gifts in me that God wants me to share, and I will. So that's
Okay.
how I think of enough.
That's a beautiful way of looking at it. I like that. That's something that I want to explore more in this year as to what is enough and to stop comparing. And I think for our audience members too, to stop comparing yourself of what is enough to somebody else, because there's always going to be somebody there. You will never reach that
You will
destination.
never. Yeah. That's why whatever state I am right now, it's enough. Is it a state that I'm always going to be in and that God wants me to be here? No, because He's given me the gift of ambition. He's given me the gift of knowledge. He's given me the gift of knowing financial stuff. He's given me the gift of knowing and clearing the ear for all of the noise that we're hearing in this world that's interrupting us from going where He wants us to go. So I'm doing 5 million things right now. I have a non-for-profit. I have the Modern Savvy CPA. I have Get Wealthy with Me that airs next week. I have a new property that I'm looking at to buy for my podcast studio. I have 2 kids in college. I have rental properties. I still look at CNBC all day to see how my portfolio is doing. So, we just started a not-for-profit. Can I go on? No.
Tell me about your not-for-profit.
Our not-for-profit is called the Prosperity Academy. So it's a brainstorm between me and my partner for the nonprofit. She's going to be sitting on the board with me. She's an attorney that does a lot of professional development, and she doesn't want to do litigation attorney. She does litigation support now, so she's also finding her way. So I started the non-for-profit, and I asked her to be on the board with us, and it's kind of my journey from poverty to prosperity. That's why it's called the Prosperity Academy. It is actually a way for me to move financial literacy to the non-for-profit and concentrate more with the Modern Savvy CPA with financial empowerment and freedom. So financial literacy, sometimes when people think of that, they think that it's only people in poverty needs to know that. So it's to get away from the connotation that I don't need financial education. Everyone needs financial education. It's an ongoing thing. I need it. You need it. So my for-profit is about financial freedom and empowerment. Where, I had another gal on my podcast who's a hedge fund manager, and she never invested in real estate. Her and I have had like several conversations since then about real estate because that's what I've invested in. She knows more about the markets, the financial markets. I know more about the real estate market. She's a very educated finance person, but still there's something that she didn't know. Still there's more that I didn't know. So you can always learn. Financial education is an ongoing journey. And so I'm trying to move, but I still want to do financial literacy for the underserved world. Like with my podcast and my YouTube, there's loads of free resources that I've given on all these topics. So, which is free for everyone, which you wouldn't be able to get for a CPA with my decades of experience free. So, like a free resource is really good. So that's kind of where I'm going with the not-for-profit. It's not approved yet, but our application has been in for a couple of months.
Wonderful. So I'd like to move on to kind of conspiracy theory that I have, and I'd like to get your take on it. So I'm going to rant for a second.
Sure.
So earlier on, we talked about generations, the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y, Alpha, all that stuff. Earlier, we were talking about how the baby boomers didn't really have to think about retirement. They didn't have to consider money that much. Back when they were purchasing a house, you could walk into any city, put down 3 raspberries and a nickel. Here's your deed to a house. In addition to that, they had their healthcare pretty much covered by their company. They had their retirement pretty much covered by their company. So whatever money came to their paycheck, that was free for them to spend. I will give them that they didn't have as much abundance as we do. The average starter home for someone who was a boomer was 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or maybe even 1 bath for a Tyler family of 4 or 5. So if you look at the modern day millennial starter home, it's 1,200, 1,800 or 1,200, no, not 1,200, 1,800, maybe 2,800 square feet, 2 stories, 4 bedroom, 3 bath, and that's considered a starter home. Now, the baby boomers had it, and I'll call it in quotes, relatively easy when it comes to money. And the reason for that, I believe, is because they were the electorate. They were the largest group of individuals that were voting and keeping people in power. And everyone who wanted to go into Congress to be elected as a senator knew that if we wanted to get elected, we had to placate to this group of individuals. We'll give them every tax break they want. We'll give them as much Social Security as they want. We'll give them everything they want in order to keep us elected. And now the generation is still around and they still control the electorate. So we have been kicking the can down to say, who are we going to screw over? Who are we going to screw over? Well, the millennials look pretty easy. They don't know anything about anything. How about we just tell them, if you go to college for 4 years, go into huge amounts of debt, everything will be okay. Millennials do it. They realize they get out of school 2013, 2012. There's no jobs waiting for them. We kick the can down again and say, let's try it again with Gen Z. Gen Z has begun to wise up to this ruse that keeps on going on.
Right.
So my conspiracy is that as the boomers begin to die off, now we have this group of millennials and Gen Z who are not financially literate, not understanding as to what the hell's going on, because all they've been is screwed over and over and over again. And now you tell them, okay, now you go run the country. You guys got it. Figure it out. And everyone's so short-sighted and looking only at the next 4 years. Am I going to get elected for the next 4 years? That we're not thinking about our country in the long term and where we're going to be able to go.
Yep. I'm shaking my head because I'm agreeing with you all the way. You keep it going. I'm ranting. I can rant with you. I'm a Gen X, but both of my kids are millennials, and I see this. I saw it 20 years ago when I started working for the Red Cross 25 years ago, and I looked at health insurance costs going up 22 to 25% a year. That I will even go furthermore to say that in addition to the can getting kicked and you guys are getting screwed over, I'm with you there. Except we should have been smarter, and address this issue earlier. But I'm also gonna say that there's so much trying to pull the wool over your eyes. In addition to you guys getting stuck in the mud, nobody wants you to think you're in the mud. If you look on TV or you look on the news or you look wherever, there's so much noise in front of you. They're trying to confuse you so you don't know what's happening. So it's even worse than you're saying, in my opinion.
And I would say one of the easiest ways to know that is if you go back and you look at government statistics as to what is unemployment. And now we say we're historically lower than we've ever been, 1 or 2%. But if you go back and you look at how they were able to gauge what is unemployed, it's changed substantially over the last 50 years. And they keep on trying to change the rules in order to make the numbers look better than they actually are.
So I have my own take on unemployment. You interested in hearing it?
Please.
So my thoughts on unemployment as the baby boomer retires, right? That the workforce and the ideas within the workforce has not changed. Just like college, I think it's an antiquated system that it's like health insurance. College is like health insurance. The cost keeps going up and they keep taking stuff away. So you're losing on both ends. You have less coverage, but it costs you more. It's the same thing with college. To me, it's an antiquated system on how they're trying to teach you. It is the same system that they taught me 30 years ago, and it was antiquated. And the cost was the wool was pulled over everyone's eyes, even Gen Z. It started in Gen X's generation. I have friends that are still paying off student loans that went to Dartmouth and studied psychology and then came back to Bronx Community College and did a degree in nursing. And that's what they are today. But they still owe $200,000 to Dartmouth. The wool is being pulled over the eyes in the one way that with unemployment, I believe that it's even worse than you think it is because it's underemployment. So I just did a study. did a seminar that had a study in it on our Chamber of Commerce here, on our business and economic um, thing. And they part of it was the unemployment numbers. So unemployment in South Florida is there's 96 jobs to every 90 people that needs a job. So technically, right, looking at the number, unemployment is great, except in those 90 people that are available, they're only qualified for 40 of those jobs that are available. So we as a society, we don't look at what we're educating our kids in. We don't even explain to the kids because you'll go to the school and the kids will say, I have a child that's graduating high school now. No one ever sat down with us to go over finances. No one ever sat down with us to talk about marketable degrees. No one ever did anything in finance whatsoever. 30 years later, when I did it, 30 years ago when I did it, it was the same thing. So they don't know that within accounting, there's 20 different paths you can go. And we have a pipeline issue in accounting. We don't have enough accountants. They don't know in the finance field, there's probably 15 different paths that you can go to. You don't need to be a wealth manager. You can do corporate finance. You can do a CFA. You can do, I don't even know some of these things that you could do. But these kids don't know that. We are not giving them that information, even with nursing or with plumbers or with excavators. I have an excavator that makes $500,000 a year. He never graduated high school, but he's smart. Education doesn't mean intelligence. So these are all the things with society. We are going in a way that if we reshift, it's just like money. They say that the government spends all this money on the military, right? Yet we have military men going crazy, shooting, blowing themselves up, all these things. Where are we spending the money? Is the money being spent in the places they are supposed to be spent, that they're the most valuable at? It's the same thing with our budget as a person. Like, you have so much money. If you spend it all on coffee for $7 a day, you're not going to have the money to spend on the other things. So the what we're spending our money on, reshifting that is really important in society. We spend lots and lots of money in America. What are we spending it on? Because I don't think we're spending it on the right thing. We're not addressing all these issues that we have. Oh, we've spent $5 million on addressing financial literacy. What did you do? These kids are not going to learn from a gym teacher teaching them who doesn't even know how to balance his own checkbook. No offense to gym teachers. Kids today learn actions. They learn with their hands. They learn when they learn visually. So you have to have a robust program that's relating to these children for them to learn about financial literacy. You can't just require it and let it happen and throw money at it. That's my rant. I could go on.
No, I'd like to explore that together. So I don't want just to make this a complaining where we're just sitting here ranting about the issues of things. I would like to be able to give our audience members actual solutions to things. So yes, all of these things are true. Maybe baby boomers did screw over many generations. And maybe the reason that we can't get ahead is because everyone's too focused on trying to make sure that they are happy so that our government continue to be elected, each one of them. Yes, you don't have health care. Yes, you have to plan for your retirement. Yes, you don't have a pension. Yes, you got screwed over in college. But the question is, at the end of the day, and now what? What are you going to do with that information? So what do you think that our millennials and Gen Z can start to do to take the power back, to actually take control of their future, rather than just lamenting and saying, well, it is the way it is, because nihilism isn't the answer either.
Exactly. And that's where my son is, who's a millennial. And when he talks to me, he tells me, Mom, you see things in rose-colored glasses, because I like to look at the glass half full. I am going to give you a chance to have your pity party and complain about everything. But my thing is not about criticism. I don't like criticism. I like feedback and solutions. So when I'm working within my teams, I always say, I want feedback, and you must have an idea of how we can brainstorm this. So one of my solutions is financial education. If you sit down and you listen, like I personally, I'm not going to tell you that I am inflation resistant or inflation less. Sure, I bake a lot, so eggs and flour have definitely affected me. Butter, even worse. But because my financial, I plan my financial in such a way that if the government goes run amok, it's not going to, well, I think it's been going run amok for a little bit. It's not affecting me where I'm going to be homeless. The only way I'm going to be homeless right now is if, even then, I'm not going to be homeless because I have a plan for that. So educating myself financially have helped me. I picked the right profession because I've never had a problem finding a job in the accounting field through all the generations up and down markets. That's number one. Number two, I've always been fiscally responsible. So when the housing market went down in South Florida in 2005 to 8, yes, my house price went down, but I was responsible. I know my fixed rate payment, and that's my fixed rate payment. And if you know what you're doing and you concentrate on it and you don't push to be too greedy, you're gonna be able to ride that. So I rode that, and I was able to sell my house later and make a profit. So I was responsible with that. Like I said, career responsibility there. I have my emergency for my emergency for my emergency because I'm financially educated. I do not make a lot of money. My husband works for Home Depot. So he is works in nights for Home Depot for 20 something years. I am the CPA in the family. I learned how to make what I have enough and build on it. And if I can do that, no matter what the government does and what society does to me, send my kids to college. My older son is about to graduate with no loans. We bought a condo for him with his birthday money in his college thing. It's not like I had $40,000 of down payment. I've been saving his birthday money for that for 18 years to get that condo. So I started somewhere. I didn't wait for the big picture. I started. Wherever I started, I started. I was responsible. Whatever was given to me was enough. We still went on our little vacations. We own our house. Before I got a luxury car, I was way into my 40 something years old, and it's still not the luxury that you would think. So, I prioritize properly. I don't care what people think. I do believe in quality over quantity, but there's certain things. The one thing about the American society that I agree on and I love, and why people still come here, is because you can live. You can live a Walmart lifestyle. You can live a Macy's lifestyle. You can live a Saks lifestyle. You can live a Bergdorf Goodman lifestyle. But you can buy dishes for $20 at Walmart or $5,000 at Bergdorf Goodman. The point is, you're gonna have dishes in your closet. You're gonna have food on your table. You can eat at Tavern on the Green, or you can go and buy your food and cook your meal, but you can still eat. There are societies in this world that can't do that. So in this country, it allows us to do that. And if we look at that aspect of it, that is the one thing that can happen if you educate yourself financially and you believe what you have is enough, because then you can work with what you have. That does not mean you shouldn't have ambition to move forward. You should, because God gave you all those gifts, and I do. But what you have is enough, and you work with it, and then you move forward, and it'll happen. I have seen clients of mine that make less than $100,000 send kids to college, buy their own home, renovate their own home, go on little vacations, you know, buy their little cars, take care of themselves, do all of that on less than $100,000. I have had clients that make more than $500,000 that does not even think they can afford to save in their 401k, because their child going to private school costing $60,000 a year is what their priority is, instead of putting, $10,000 or $5,000 in their 401k. What is the difference between these two people? This one has over $500,000 a year. This one has less than 100,000 at times 75. They're living in the enough society. Their living is never going to be in. They're the ones in trouble because it's easy to make money. It's not that easy to keep it.
There's a huge difference that I think people need to learn between what is rich and what is wealthy.
Yep, absolutely.
What do you think the difference is?
So to me, another financial advisor gave me the word Henry. Have you ever heard that acronym? Henry's.
High earner, not rich yet.
Yes. See? You guys millennials, it's another millennial, okay? That taught me that one. That those are people who do make a lot of money. I don't know if they're ever gonna get wealthy. They're rich to me, right? Because rich people are people who make a lot of money. Wealthy people are people who have assets. That's build their assets. So that's what wealth is to me. An asset doesn't necessarily mean monetary assets. It's many different assets. It's enriching yourself in education, enriching yourself in experiences, enriching yourself, yes, building your assets, but it's a wide array of enrichment that makes you wealthy. Rich people are just people who have a lot of money. That's all. They're keeping.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
And I can say as a wealth manager, I have worked with people who make over $500,000 and go into the red every month.
Yep.
There is not an enough if you don't believe you aren't enough.
Exactly.
So earlier I've asked you, what can Gen Z and millennials do today to start setting themselves up for the future? And you answered with education primarily.
Yes.
I believe that education without action is just entertainment. How do these millennials and Gen Z begin to take action when there's so much coming at them, so much information? It's scary to even know, where do I start?
Okay, you got to start with Fi Guy and the Modern Savvy CPA and Get Wealthy With Me podcast. And what they're teaching you is what they're going to be continuing to teach you is that you need to understand the difference. So education is just the first part. You said, where do they start? They start with educating themselves financially. So that's the start, right? So you need to understand what your 401k is. You need to understand, you need to understand, I talk with my hands a lot. You need to understand where you have to make your goals to like, I believe in goals. So in how I save money, and I'll give you a quick example on every penny I have is as a designation. I have to remind myself what the money is for. So I have a lot of different accounts. So there was college funds, which only has actually both has in there now. There were several different pots there. One birthday money went in, one was what I saved for them every month. There was housing fund when I was younger and saving for my house. There's always a vacation. There's ones that stays on the list all the time. The retirement one, and there were times where I was only putting $50 in my retirement. I don't care if you're putting $10. In the birthday fund, in the birthday college fund for my kids, when my oldest was ready to go to college, there was $35,000 in there. So that was birthday money. For 18 to 20 years, 2 kids, birthday money, that's how much it ends up being. So if you don't start somewhere, if you always kick the can down the road like your predecessors, you are always going to be kicking it, and you're going to be 50, 60 years old and you're kicking it. So you got to start. When you start working, you put money away. I don't care if it's $10, $20, $100, you can move up with that a little bit. When my kids were younger and I worked part-time, I was putting $200 in my SEP IRA. That SEP IRA is $150,000 today. So you don't think 200 is a lot, but you've got to start. You got to start somewhere. Make your goals. Even if you're putting a little bit, it counts. You have to start prioritizing what your goals are and start putting it together. Also, mindset. If you can first, to educate yourself, you have to have that mindset in financial education, right? So your mindset and your mentality plays a big role. If you're not in the right mindset that I can do this, this is America, what do I want? I'm going to go for it. It's not going to be easy. I know that, but nobody said life was going to be easy. The more you work for something, the sweeter it is, in my opinion. So you got to start. Start with, like, my kids, my 2 children. The oldest one, I started him with a Roth IRA during COVID. That's how he started learning how to invest in the stock market. Because my family thought the stock market was for wealthy people, so we never did it. Although I was saving my allowance in a bank, if I had invested in a Disney stock in 1985, I'd be very good right now. But my parents didn't know that. That's our culture doesn't have that. So I didn't have that, but I'm teaching my kids that. My youngest, I put a little account with him and me together on Schwab, and he's learning how to invest there. It's just play money, but he's understanding. I don't want him to manage his own money, but I want him to have an understanding on how the market works and what we're doing, looking at the companies. My oldest look at the companies a lot into what they're doing and that type of things to learn how to invest. We're not playing in Vegas. So I don't want them to think that the stock market is Vegas. I want them to understand the mechanics behind, investing in a company. So learning, that's financial education. Financial education doesn't have to be in a book. It's all aspect, networking, meeting different people. Your generation, I wish someone had taught me about networking. That's the difference between the poor and the wealthy, is your network. It's your network, but not also your net worth. So you have to invest that time into, fulfilling that part, making sure that you're learning, your mind is open and you're sponging in everything that you need to have. And having those specific goals and the things that you want to do. And I don't want you to beat yourself up when you don't make those goals. Think about it. If you make a goal, if you say I'm gonna save $5,000 in my retirement and you only save $3,000, I only saved $3,000. That's $3,000 more than you would have done if you didn't have it. So make your goal, have the plan in your goal that your goal is not even going to work out exactly how you made it, but you need something to aspire to. And we need that. We need focus in our life in order to focus on something, because the noise is killing us. The noise is taking away from our focus. And there's so much of it. It's so noisy,
Yeah.
The shopping realm as it is. Today, even all these algorithms, if I look at the shoes on Saks, I get 11 emails by the end of the day about how I have good taste and don't I want these shoes and it's going to run low and all these different things. I can't even window shop on the internet now in peace. And that might convince somebody to buy those shoes that they don't need because they just window shop. So there's so much noise. And the way that you're going to get away from the noise is focusing on your goals and educating yourself on those things.
I'd agree with that. When you were talking about just getting started and blocking out some of the noise, I keep on thinking of this quote: don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to start.
You have to start. That's that. If nobody gets anything about our podcast today about finances, that's what they need to get. You just need to start. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Agree, because there is no such thing as perfection.
No such thing.
There's always something that could be better.
Always something that could be better.
I'd like to ask you another question regarding mindset, because you said that's something that's really important. And I want to bring up another quote, and this was given by Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And I wonder, in today's society where Gen Z and Millennials are constantly being told that they're not enough, that they're going to be screwed over, they're never going to be able to retire, you're never going to be able to buy a house, you can't afford any of this stuff. How do you keep that positive mindset, or even worse, cultivate a positive mindset amongst all this noise of telling you that you are not enough and you will never be enough?
You find the community and you continue to look for that community. And a community does not have to be all cohesive, one together. Your community could be one person in England and another person in Bangladesh and another person in Florida, where you are like-minded with them, where you guys can brainstorm together and figure stuff out together, and it's going to be positive. I don't want to say completely positive, because we are all allowed as human beings to learn from our mistakes. So, but if we complain about our mistakes or complain about our wrongs and not see them as a lesson, because that's my other saying, what's not a blessing is a lesson. So if what's happening to you is not blessing you, then God is trying to teach you something. That's even a bigger blessing. Learn what he's trying to teach you. Almost everything in my life that has happened to me has either been a blessing or a lesson. If it's not a blessing, then I look deeper within me to find out what the lesson is. Because I'm supposed to learn something from this. What am I supposed to learn to make it better next time? So that's my mindset. That's how I look at it. I have my days. I rant and rave. I complain about things. We just did that right here. But now I got to look forward to it. Like I told you, our economy and our world is not going to throw me overboard, because within me, I still have my own plan. I'm not going to stop planning because our government doesn't understand us. You know, we listed 5 million things that is wrong with our society, but there's 5 million of one thing that is right. And then within you, you work with that. You even work on the wrong things to make things better. That's what we're trying to do here. You know, what I'm doing here, I've invested tons and tons of money in the Modern Savvy CPA, and I have not monetized yet, because I truly believe in this dream. I truly believe in financial education, empowerment, and freedom. And I believe I can teach it to people. I believe I can take it out there. I believe in your generation. I have 2 kids that are Gen Zs. If I don't address this, and their friends talk to me all the time because they don't have that at home. And people, it's hard because no one wants to address it. No one wants to. We try to reach out to school. We try to reach out to all these different places where I can go in and do these talks and write some workshops for them or those type of things. And you can tell I'm not a boring person. You know, I've kept you going for over an hour. And when I speak to people or I speak in crowd, you know, I follow my crowd. I look at what they're, you know, I understand what's happening. The camera is really hard for me because I can't read the crowd. So, but when I'm speaking in front of people, I know what they're working with and when they're not working, and I know when I'm losing them or when I'm not losing them. So, with what's happening in society, I feel like it is my duty to take the gift of financial education and empowerment that I have learned throughout my life and my experiences to the Gen Zs and the Millennials and give them that gift, because our middle class is what makes America great. Regardless of what any president says, the ability for America to have a middle class is what makes our country great. And we're going to lose that if we are not educated financially, because we have to learn to work with what our enough is.
How would you define middle class?
Middle class, how would I define middle class? That's a hard question, so I might have to think about it a little bit. But it is is when you develop financial freedom. That doesn't mean you have enough money. It just means when you are able. I consider myself middle class. I think financially, I might be lower middle class in my income level. Maybe asset wise, I might be regular middle class. But when you are able to see that, you know, you don't waste, you understand the difference between wasting, because I don't think middle class people can afford anything they want. I think middle class are being smart about their money, are people who are smart about their money, but they're able to experience many things.
I'd like to ask you 2 more questions before we sign off.
Okay.
Number 1 is, do you think that it is systemic to try to keep people poor, to not educate people? Like you said, you've tried so hard to, and so many people have tried so hard to just teach this information, but it almost seems to be suppressed, or like people don't want people to learn this information. Do you think that there might be a reason for that?
Being experienced with the third world, I would say that by default, people might want to say that. And in terms of our hierarchy with our government, that might be something that we're thinking about. But one of the things, well, 2 things about the American society that makes America the country that people dream still about, and they go through a lot to come here, is where there's a will, there's a way. So why is an immigrant who does not even have a green card be able to come here and live on such low, tiny little wages, buy a house, educate their kids, and do all these things. But yet, Americans who grow up here that lives and complains about what's happening and not finding a solution, not able to do it.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's exactly what I hoped you would say, is that at the end of the day, it comes down to personal choice. No one is actively working against individuals, but it takes it on to the individual to try to change their circumstances, regardless of whatever the circumstances is. Because no matter how bad your situation is, there is someone out there, I guarantee, who has it worse than you. And they can pull themselves out, so why can't you?
Right. And I know that that's a hard-nosed thing to say, and I've been told that lots of times, but that's truly what I believe. If I can come here with my dad and $100 in his pocket, and I'm not saying every immigrant has done it. There are ones that still have the cry and whatever it is, and educate myself, and not just educate college-wise, educate myself in society-wise. We didn't have it easy. If I had known about the Disney stocks, I would have had more money, wealth in the long run, but we didn't have that. I worked with what I got. I'm still able to do what I can. I'm still able to become a middle class. You work with what you have. You work with what's available for you. If you work with what's available, then you could find the other things. It'll come.
Final question we ask all of our guests is, as the FI guys, the financially independent guys, we found that financial independence means very different somethings to everyone that we talk to. So what does financial independence mean to you?
Financial independence means to me that you are not constantly worried about money. You are addressing your money so you're not worried about it. So a lot of people are worried because they take a blind eye to money. They take a blind eye to finance. If you are looking at what you have and you address it, or you work within what you have, that's financial independence.
Sherron, I wanted to thank you first off for coming on and being so open with our audience members. Now I'd like to give the podcast to you to share anything you'd like to have any asks of my audience members. Floor is yours.
Well, I like to say a plug because you're going to be on my podcast next and you're going to have to spend another hour with me. Ha, ha, ha. So I want to thank you. First of all, this has been a great conversation. I am very passionate about everything when it comes to these topics, and I'm only beginning on my journey. And I believe that this is where God wants me to go. So I want to thank you for being on it. And I want to say that I think we have very similar mentalities and understanding of what our world is. It's not rose-colored glasses, like my son says, but it's realistic glasses. And yes, we believe and we understand that there's all these issues, but we also have where the accountability within ourselves comes. So it takes a village, and the village is inside of you and outside of you.
And where can the people go to find you?
So almost everything is on my website. So if you go to themodernsavvycpa.com, all of our links to my podcast, my website, my Instagram, and my YouTube is all there. But our podcast called Get Wealthy with Me, that's our new podcast, is going to first air on the 14th, and it's going to be weekly on what day, Chala? Tuesdays? Weekly on Tuesdays on Spotify, RSS, and Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcast streaming stuff.
Sherron, the Savvy CPA, thank you so much for joining us today. And to our audience members, if you got value today, please like, subscribe, leave a comment for the algorithm. But most importantly, please share the FI Guys with one person, because you can go so much further on this journey to financial independence together than you can go alone. And with
Absolutely.
that, I'm Chris. She's Sherron. Later.
Bye.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.